Hello everyone, I am Kunal Panchal, working as an assistant professor in Computer Engineering Department at LG Institute of Engineering and Technology. Welcome all to the video lecture series of operating system with respect to the syllabus of Gujarat Technological University. In this session, we are going to discuss the GATE example of shortest job first scheduling algorithm. Okay, so as I told you, we are going to discuss SJF. In the previous session, we have discussed the working of SJF in detail. There are two flavors we have when we are talking about SJF. SJF having primitive nature and SJF having non-primitive nature. We have discussed, what is primitive algorithm and what is non-primitive type of algorithm in detail in the previous sessions. Okay, so in this session, we are going to discuss the example of SJF scheduling algorithm, which was asked in GATE 2014. Okay, so let us discuss this example first. So in this example, uh, we have this table as an input in which there are various processes we have. Okay, so what this example tells us, so let us discuss in detail. An operating system uses shortest remaining time for scheduling algorithm. Operating system uses shortest remaining time first scheduling algorithm, which is also known as primitive shortest job first scheduling algorithm that we have discussed in the previous session. Okay, so if somebody asks you what is shortest remaining time for scheduling algorithm, it is nothing but a primitive shortest job for scheduling algorithm. Okay, so you should not be confused when such type of input you have in your examination. Shortest remaining time for scheduling algorithm is nothing but primitive SJF. Okay, so for primitive scheduling of processes, that is given. Okay, so to solve this example, we need to consider the shortest remaining time first scheduling algorithm with primitive nature. Okay, so consider the following set of processes with their arrival times and CPU burst time in milliseconds. So what is given to you as input? So this table is given to you as input, in which there are four processes with its arrival time and burst time. Okay, arrival time you know very well. Okay, and burst time, it is nothing but the running time in the CPU. Okay, so that is given to you as an input. Okay, for different processes. Okay, in terms of milliseconds. So you need to execute these example by considering the primitive SJF scheduling algorithm. Okay, so and now what is expected from this example, that you have to find out the average waiting time in terms of milliseconds of the processes is blank. In this case, there are various options we have. The first one is what? Average waiting time of processes is 4.5, B is 5.0, C is 5.5, or D is 6.5. Means what? Out of these available options, you have to pick any one option once you executed these examples successfully. Okay, so these are the options. So what we need to find out, we need to find out the average waiting time. Okay, but before going to find out average waiting time, you need to find out the waiting time for different processes first. Okay, and before going to find out waiting time, you need to draw the Gantt chart first, or you can say timeline chart first, according to this input that we have. Okay, so let us start with the example. So the same table I have taken over here. Okay, and now based on this table inputs, we are going to solve this example. And what is the first step of this example? You have to draw the Gantt chart, okay, based on the consideration of primitive, based on the consideration of primitive nature of SJF. Okay, so let us discuss the Gantt chart first. And as I told you, it is very important to uh, draw the Gantt chart in a proper way, because the upcoming values will be based on this Gantt chart only. So if you made any mistake, okay, to draw this Gantt chart with its time duration, so definitely your answer will be incorrect at the end. So let us discuss how we can draw this Gantt chart by having the primitive scenario. You know very well, in the case of primitive nature algorithm, you have to consider the context switching of the processes. Okay, context switching we have discussed in the previous sessions. If you don't aware about it, you need to uh, see my previous videos in which the context switching, what is primitive and what is non-primitive type of algorithms, it is already discussed. Okay, so now we need to consider, in the case of, as I told you in the previous session, in the case of SJF, shortest job first algorithm, we are considering the burst time, or we can say running time in the CPU, which is given to you as input, and according to these burst time input, we are scheduling the process for execution in the CPU. Okay, that's why it is called shortest job first. Yes, so it is based on the running time, or we can say burst time, and according to the burst time we will schedule the process for execution. Okay, so this burst time is given. Now according to this burst time, but in the case of primitive scenario, in this case we have given one separate column which is nothing but arrival time of different process. So that uh, value we need to consider also before scheduling the process, because as you know very well, when you have process in ready queue, then and then you can schedule that process for execution. If there is no process available in the ready queue, there is no concept or there is no point of discussion to schedule the process for execution. Okay, so before scheduling the process for execution, process should be there in the ready queue. And how we can come to know that whether the process is ready, or process is available in the ready queue or not, based on this arrival time. Okay, so arrival time of different process is different in this case. So let us start with the arrival time 0. Means what? At 0 milliseconds we need to consider how many processes we have. How many processes we have in the ready queue? Only one. P1 process is ready in the ready queue. So P1 will be scheduled first for execution in the CPU. Why? Because it is senior most process in terms of arrival time. And at the same time, there is no other process arrived in the ready queue. So at time 0 millisecond, we have only one option, that is nothing but P1. So we simply, without consideration of burst time of P1 process, we will simply schedule that process for execution in the CPU. Why? Because there is no other option we have at that time. Okay, so at time 0 we have only one option, so P1 we have scheduled for execution. Because it is primitive type of algorithm, okay, so we will execute this process, okay, for 1 unit of time, or we say 1 milli 1 millisecond, we will execute this process for 1 unit of time only. After 1 unit of time, again we will check is there any other process arrived in the ready queue or not, and this pattern will continue. Okay, whenever you are executing any process after 1 unit of time, you will check. Okay, you will check whether any other process arrived in the ready queue or not, and if any process arrived, in that case you need to check the burst time. You need to check the burst time of that process. If burst time of that process is less than the remaining time of existing process, in that case we need to do a context switch. So let us discuss this phenomenon with the help of this example. So in this case, P1 has started its execution after 1 unit of time. Okay, we will check is there any other process arrived in the ready queue? No, there is no other process arrived at the time of 1. So again, we will continue the execution of P1 up to next 1 unit of time. Okay, so 1 to 2, P1 will continue its execution. Okay, now once you execute that P1 for second unit of time, then you have to check once again, is there any other process arrived in the ready queue? Okay, so at the time of 2 milliseconds, we need to check this table. Arrival time 2, yes, one more process is arrived in the ready queue, which is nothing but P2. So now we have two options. Now we have two options. Either P1 can continue its execution or P2 can take over the CPU for its own execution. So how we will take decision in this case when we have more than one choice in the case of ready queue? So in that case, we need to consider the burst time of these two processes. We need to consider the burst time of these two processes. So P2 is arrived at time 2. Now, but before that, we need to consider P1 is already executed for 2 units. So the initial value of burst time as far as P1 process is concerned, it was 12 unit. Yes, but P1 is already executed for 2 units. So now what is the remaining time of P1? 10. Okay, so 10 value we will consider for further calculation instead of 12, because we have already executed P1 for 2 unit time. Okay, so these things you need to keep in your mind. Okay, now once we have the second choice, in that case we will compare the burst time of newly arrived process with burst time of already exist process. Okay, so execution, or I guess a burst time of P1 process is 10, will be compared with burst time of P2 process, which is nothing but 4. So obviously P2 burst time is less than the burst time of P1. So now we need to do a context switch. So P2 will take over the CPU and it will start its execution, because it is shortest one as compared to P1. So at unit 2, P2 will start its execution. Okay. So again we need to execute this P2 for 1 unit of time, and again we need to check at time 3. Once we executed P2 for 1 unit, at time 3 we need to check once again, is there any other process arrived in the ready queue? Yes, P3 is arrived. So again we need to check the burst time of P3. But before that, before comparing this value with P2, we need to update the value of initial value of P2, which is nothing but 4. Now, because P2 is already executed for 1 unit of time, so updated value of P2 burst time is what now? It is now 3 instead of 4. Okay, now these 3 value will be compared with the burst time of P3. So 3 is less than 6. So definitely P2 will continue its execution because it is shortest one as compared to P3. So again we will execute P2 for one more unit of time. So up to 4 P2 would be executed. Again we need to check at time 4, is there any other process arrived in the ready queue? No. So in that case we need to continue the execution. But before continuing the execution, again we need to check what is the remaining bus time of P2 process. Remaining bus time of P2 process is now 2, and 2 is again less than these two values, bus time of these two process values. Okay, so again P2 would be continuing its execution up to 5 milliseconds. At 5 milliseconds, again need to check, is there any other process arrived in the ready queue? No. So again we need to update the value of burst time of P2 process. So now the burst time of P2 process is what? 1. So 1 is less than the available process in the ready queue. So definitely P2 again continue its execution up to 6 milliseconds. Means now once P2 is executed up to 6 milliseconds, now P2 is P2 has completed its execution. So now P2 is come out from the system. Okay, so now we are not going to consider the P2 for further calculation because it is already executed in the system. Okay, now what are the other available options? We have P1, P3 and P4. So before going to schedule which out of these process, we need to check at time 6, is there any another process arrived in the ready queue? No, P4 is not arrived because arrival time of P4 is 8. Okay, and that value is larger than this 6. So P4 is not arrived. Okay, so we have only two options, P1 and P2. So sorry, P1 and P3, because P2 is already exits from the system. Okay, so P1 and P3, in that case we need to consider which one, because the burst time of P1 is 10 and burst time of P3 is 6. So which process will be scheduled for execution? Definitely P3. So P3 will start its execution again after 1 unit of time. Again we need to check at time 7, is there any other process arrived in the ready queue? No, it is not arrived. So what we will do in this case, we will execute P3 for one more unit of time. So up to 8 we will execute P3. Okay, so after execution of 2 unit of time, as far as P3 process is concerned, now what is the remaining time of P3? 4. Okay, remaining time of P3 is 4. And at the time unit 8, okay, you need to check, is there any other process arrived in the ready queue? Yes, P4 is arrived. Now we need to check the burst time of P4. Burst time of P4 is 5. And what is the remaining burst time of P3? 4. So 4 is less than 5. So definitely P3 will continue its execution. P3 will continue its execution for 1 unit of time. So now at the time of 9 unit, we need to check, is there any other process arrived in the queue? No. Okay, so we need to check the remaining burst time of P3 process. Now it is 3. Yes, and 3 is less than 5. So definitely P3 will continue its execution. Same way, next unit of time, again the value would be 2. 2 is less than 5. Again P3 will be continue its execution. Again it will be executed for 1 unit of time, and at 11 time again it will the value of burst time of P3 process is nothing but 1. So definitely 1 is less than 5. Okay, so P3 will continue its execution for remaining 1 period of time. So at time 12, P3 is successfully executed in the system and it will come out from that system. Clear? So now we have how many options? We have P1 and P4. These two processes are remaining for execution in the CPU. So now we need to compare the burst time of these two processes. So P1, because P1 is already executed for 2 unit of time. So remaining burst time of P1 process is 10, and the burst time of P4 is what? 5. So definitely P5 will be executed first as compared to P1, because the burst time, because it is shortest in terms of burst time as compared to P1. So P4 will start its execution and it will continue its execution, because now we don't want to check, you know, the other process which has been arrived or not, because all the processes are successfully arrived in the ready queue. So in this case, now we will continue the execution of P4 in the CPU up to 17. Means what? Because burst time of P4 is what? 5 unit of time. So P4 will be executed successfully starting from 12. And what is the burst time of P4? 5. So 12 plus 5 is equal to 17. So up to 17 P4 would be executed, and once it is executed, it will come out from the system, and then the last process would be scheduled for execution. Okay, that is nothing but P1 process. So P1, it will start its execution at unit number 17, but it will execute its task for 10 units only instead of 12, because P1 was scheduled previously and it is already executed for 2 unit of time. So in this case, 17 plus 10 instead of 12, 17 plus 10 is equal to 27. So up to 27 P1 will be executed. Okay, in this way you can prepare the Gantt chart, okay, of primitive SJF CPU scheduling algorithm. Okay, now we need to calculate the waiting time, and as we have discussed in the previous session, how we can find out waiting time when we are talking about primitive type of algorithm. So waiting time, the equation of waiting time is what? Is equal to total waiting time minus number of milliseconds process executed minus arrival time. So how we can find out? Let us find out, you know, the waiting time of P1. So waiting time of P1 is what? P1 you need to check P1, total waiting time of P1 is 17 milliseconds. Okay, 17. This is nothing but a waiting time. But before going to consider this value, okay, as a final waiting time, we need to check whether P1 was executed previously or not. So if P1 is executed previously, in that case we need to consider that value also. Okay, and that value needs to be subtracted from this total waiting time. Okay, so P1, again we will check P1 is there. Yes, P1 is already executed for 2 unit of time in previous case. So these two needs to be subtracted here. So total waiting time is equal to 17 minus number of milliseconds process executed already. Okay, so that is nothing but 2. Okay, previously it was executed for 2 unit of time. So minus 2 minus arrival time of P1. How we can find out the arrival time? So arrival time is given to you as input. So arrival time of P1 is what? 0. So in this case 17 minus 2 minus 0. So 17 minus 2 minus 0 is equal to 15 millisecond. Okay, same way for P2. Let us, you know, concentrate for P2 also. Like P2 in this case, what is the waiting time of P2? P2 is 2. Waiting time of total waiting time is 2 minus, we need to check P2 is executed previously. No, P2 is not executed previously. So number of millisecond processed executed is nothing, this value is nothing but 0. So 2 minus 0 minus arrival time of which process? P2. Arrival time of P2 we can fetch from here. Okay, so which is nothing but 2. So 2 minus 0 minus 2 is equal to 0 millisecond. In this way you can calculate for P3 and P4. And once we have the value of waiting time for different processes, then we can simply find out the average waiting time for different processes. And if you find out the average waiting time, how we can find it out? It is very easy. Whatever the waiting time we have for different processes, that we need to sum. So 15 plus 0 plus 3 plus 4 divided by number of processes that we have is equal to, if you calculate this value, Okay, so the final value is 5.5 millisecond. Okay, final value is 5.5 millisecond, which is nothing but the average waiting time. So go to the previous slide in which we need to pick one option. Okay, out of these four, we need to pick which one? C, because C is the correct answer, 5.5. That we have calculated over here, 5.5. So the average waiting time in milliseconds of processes is nothing but 5.5. So in this way, you can calculate the average waiting time of primitive shortage of scheduling algorithm. This is very important example for your examination. Okay, such type of examples will be asked in your examination. So I hope it is clear to you. So thanks for watching this video. See you in the next one.